The primary snare for the Christian is not breaking moral laws, important though that is, but the idolatry, the worshipping of false gods, that leads to such behavior. That is the focus of Paul's plea here. Make sure you're worshipping the true God, and everything else will follow. The symptom of their rebellion that he highlights is one he doesn't mention elsewhere, but obviously was becoming important in the modelled life of the young Galatian Christians. You observe, he says, days, months, seasons, and years. Now, from very early on, the Christian church kept various festivals. Paul himself speaks of the first day of the week as special, 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2, and certainly the early Christians met on what they called the Lord's Day, Revelation chapter 1, verse 10, the day that had been made special forever by Jesus' resurrection. Likewise, Easter quickly became an important annual festival, and many in the church, including Paul himself, Acts chapter 20, verses 6-16, 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 8, continued to date what they were doing by reference to Jewish festivals such as Passover and Pentecost. So it can't be that all observances of days and times was to be banned. In any case, Paul himself says in Romans chapter 14, verses 5-6, that observing days or not observing them is something for individual Christians to decide as a matter of their own personal discipleship. What seems to matter here is that the Galatians are insisting on keeping the Jewish festivals, and the point of those Jewish festivals was that they all looked forward to the great act of redemption which God would one day accomplish. So how can they keep them when God's future has already arrived in Jesus Christ? They are saying by these observances that they aren't sure if God really has done what he said he would, whereas the whole point of the gospel is that he has. This is what makes Paul say with exasperation that he is beginning to wonder if he's wasted all his effort over them. But the heart of the passage, and perhaps its central thrust for Christians today, is the call to find true freedom in knowing and being known by the true God. The life of devotion and worship, gazing in adoration at the true God, whose character and actions we can never study enough, sets us free from the rule of other gods. But the other gods will continually whisper to us that we might actually prefer being enslaved to them again. It's easier to rule your life by the old lineup of options, racial or tribal identity, geographical or territorial loyalty, the demands of money, sex, and power. It's much harder to follow the God revealed in Jesus and the Spirit and to learn true freedom, true humanness in the fellowship of other followers. But, as Paul will go on to say, there really is no alternative. God has acted. We have tasted the effect of that action. If we go back now, we are denying not only ourselves and our Christian experience, but God himself.